Bench Opinions. Three idiots with amateur analysis.
Okay, welcome to Bench Opinions. This is the rugby segment. If you were looking for the football segment, that was yesterday. So
Let's
go
be
back and
honest.
watch that.
Let's be honest with the fans of what just happened. we started this rugby episode.
We completely fumbled. we thought we caught ourselves, but then we
It was a
faced
slight
planted.
technicality. We wanted to speak about the top 8 of the URC without knowing who the top 8 of the URC are.
But now we know.
Now we know.
Now we know.
We've done our research.
Well, now we have a list so we can read it so that we don't make mistakes.
Yeah.
Let's dive into the top 8.
Yes.
We had just previously mentioned that Maxi's team, the Stormers, have made it to the top 8.
Yeah, made it comfortably. If you look at the last, I think, 6 results, other than the Bulls, they are considered the informed team because they've only lost once.
We'll get to our...
Also depending on what teams they
Doesn't
played.
matter.
Doesn't matter.
We'll
okay.
get to our... I think we'll get to our, like, how we judge the... Yes. Each team's going in and the different heads. Let's just go through the top 8.
Yeah, we'll go through the top 8. That's Leinster, Vodacom Blue Bulls. We've got Hollywood Sharks, Hollywood Bets Sharks, Glasgow Warriors, DHL Stormers, Munster, Edinburgh, and Scarlets.
The sponsors are going to love you for saying their
Right.
names, Klaus. Thank you very much. Vodacom ka-ching.
Guys, we're still looking for a sponsor ourselves. So
I can
Hollywood
see-
Bets,
I can see you in a Hollywood Bets ad
100%.
with Sia there.
Bro. And Irvin.
And his
And
wife.
Evan. Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So small factor of South Africa having 3 teams in the top 8, which who would have thought? Because our rugby pyramid is collapsing. So that's nice.
According to Ben Smith.
Yeah. And yeah, two Irish teams. I think they'll be a little bit disappointed. The Irish Rugby Union. I think they would back themselves to also have 3.
Yeah.
Even though, I mean, it is a pretty strong competition.
Yeah.
You wouldn't. Scarlets, great results for the Scarlets getting into that top 8.
I think more surprising.
Sorry, just to go back on Ireland. You say that, but then Connacht and Ulster both finished 13th and 14th.
No, but that's what I'm saying.
But it's tight down there. It's tight down there with the points, and in the end, it probably only hinges on like 2 or 3 losses.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not talking so much about. I'm talking about going into the season and where they would want to see themselves, as opposed to like what happened in the last few weeks.
Yeah, great for the 2 Scottish unions to get into the top 8 because Edinburgh really fell off it.
Yeah.
Because in the beginning they looked like they were also gonna challenge for one of the top 4 spots, and then they really dropped off. Glasgow also, I think.
They're a little off the boil currently.
Yeah, probably the opposite of what you want. You know, you'd probably prefer. I'm not going to harp on about my Stormers, but have your struggles early on in the season and come into form later, so that when the playoffs come around, you're more up for it.
Or you do it like the Sharks and never find form and just stumble your way into the top.
We had form at the beginning. Oh, sorry, the Sharks. My bad. I thought you were talking
No,
about
you can
Fucking
say
looking
we.
for the first gap to find the Lions there.
I thought we were talking about a different team.
But also, you can be honest and say that the Sharks are your second team, and you're a big Sharks fan. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't like the way they play currently.
No.
But yes.
Any words on your Lions?
we managed to get 11th, but we were like, what was it, 8 points away from making the playoffs. So it would have been really, really nice for us to have made the playoffs, but it's not. It's just not possible. With
I think had an English teacher heard you use the word "really, really nice" to describe,
They would have been upset.
They would have slapped you.
It's just not. It's and it
like-
doesn't, Klaus. It's just not. It's just. It doesn't seem like you would have been like if you're very happy. I don't think you say it's really nice. Anyway, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
We get what you're saying.
Okay. I'm not going to comment on the words that you guys use because I didn't realize we were in an English lesson, yeah? But regardless, the Lions just don't have the squad depth or the financial means to be able to compete with.
I don't
with
think
these
anyone's
other teams.
surprised. Maybe disappointed with the start to the season. There was a feeling that maybe they could have tried to snuck in there, but I think that's of their own doing that there's disappointment because I think they just really started out the blocks hot.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we're losing Van der Merwe now, Edwell. So he's going to the Stormers.
Yeah, but you guys are like almost like
Sharks.
a talent factory.
Sharks?
He's going to the
He's going
Sharks.
to the Sharks.
My bad.
You guys are almost like a talent factory that you guys keep finding youngsters that can perform. It's just a pity because then it takes them a while to get developed, and that sort of puts you on the back foot again. It would have been nice for you guys to get into top 8, I think, purely for the European competition that you would have qualified for, the Champions Cup.
Yeah. But then you got to ask yourself, just for that sole purpose, the South African unions, as we've discussed plenty of times, haven't been competing in that.
There's very big financial implications of qualifying for that,
Right.
as a comparison to the Challenge Cup, which I mean you'll still get paid, but I think it's a different payday, and I think the Lions, most South African unions, we need every cent we can get. How about Benetton? They're consistently like a really good team in the URC. I think they'd be disappointed not to get into the top 8 because I don't know, they play very good rugby and they upset a lot of big teams now and then.
Yeah, I don't know. I worry. I just think about I look at Benetton's team. I do think sometimes that they're just a little bit of like it's a rotating door. So a lot of dudes kind of that. Like they've got quite a lot of international guys there. Obviously, your core of the Italian team will a lot of the time be there, unless they're playing. If they're really good, they might get into a French side. But generally, there's quite a lot. It's a little bit of a ragtag bunch. You know, you got people like Reno Smith, got people like Umaga there as well. There's another winger used to play for England, now plays for Italy. Like it's just a little bit of a strange bunch of peeps. So I think also like unfortunately for them, maybe similarly to the Lions to a certain degree, like as soon as maybe a big opportunity comes by, they tend to lose their big guys.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what makes it hard for them to kind of consistently always stay in the top 8. And maybe there's sort of outside factors there that that don't allow them to do that. But I must say they had some crazy good results this year, and they played some very exciting rugby. So they definitely a USP for the URC for sure.
I don't know if I agree with that. I think, well, as you said, they've got a lot of the Italian internationals, but I think they've got a pretty solid core of their group, and just with a couple of outside, like Umaga has been playing there pretty consistently the whole season, so it's not like he's in and out.
No, but I mean season to season. I think there's a lot of personnel change season to season. So now you've got a team, and then as soon as guys get other opportunities, if they have a good season in the URC, the likelihood of them moving on also financially is larger.
I'm pretty sure they made it to the top 8 last year, though.
Yeah, I know, but we're talking about the fact that they would have expected themselves to be in the top 8 this year,
and they're 2 points away from the top 8. So it's not like, you know, it's not a failure of a season in that regard. It's just, I think there are some teams that are sort of establishing themselves as good mid-table teams there, and you've got a lot of people to fight against in that regard. You know, you're fighting against Cardiff, the Lions, Scarlets now coming out of nowhere in my opinion, and Ospreys and Connacht. So it's a lot of people, and I think Edinburgh have to also be considered for that. A lot of people fighting for, I guess, spot 6, 7, and 8 in that top 8 thing. It's very crowded, and then when you look at the bottom, you've got Zebra and the Dragons, and you just sort of want your team not to be fighting amongst those two.
And then you got to look at the luck of the draw, right? Are you playing Leinster
Who are you
at
playing
home,
at
or are you
home?
playing them
Playing away?
Yeah.
Probably even which of your direct competitors are you playing at home?
Exactly.
Because that's where you'll get your points. And I think, I said the Stormers are the informed team, but I mean the teams that we've just played at home in the last 4 games, I think that was probably what Dobson was looking at when we were saying, okay, if we're in and around qualification for the top 8, that's where we're gonna cement our qualification, because those are the games you look at and you say you can win. Your Scarlets at home, Cardiff at home. I think we played Ospreys or someone else at home, and those are winnable games. Should we go into the brackets for the knockouts and just see who's who in the zoo there?
Go for it.
Leinster play Scarlets. I think that's pretty straightforward. Even though Leinster have shown a little bit of weakness, no, I think that's a step too far.
I don't think their wobble is big enough to for the Scarlets to
be a
knock them
big
off their
speed wobble.
perch.
A good one is Glasgow at home to the Stormers. I think that's actually going to be tight. I think Glasgow will take it, but I
have to see quite a lot of people being like, okay, well, that's nice. At least the Stormers made the top 8, so that's it. I disagree. I think the Stormers, as you said, obviously going away is tough, etc., but you know there's a couple of factors there. One being Sasha being back and being so good. Yeah, like, you know, it's. I think
had Damien Willemse not gotten sent off in the last game, had he been ready, I think he provides an additional X factor along with Sasha that could have worried Glasgow. But the Stormers have not been great going to play on those artificial pitches in Scotland. And although Glasgow are wobbling, I do think that they've got a little bit too much. But I think it's a good game. It's going to be a tight one.
What I'd love to see, and I think it's a bit of a struggle, what I'd love to see is like our franchises learning to play knockout rugby the way the national team does or has in the past, like managing games a little bit more.
Yeah. Because
I do feel like sometimes like the Stormers, and hats off to them, the Stormers will probably go there and try and play the same brand of rugby that they've been playing over the last few weeks. And I just don't know if that's going to work. And I think maybe that might be their undoing. But I don't think it's realistic to give Sasha the ball and let him do what he does over 80 minutes away to Glasgow, the way he was doing at the Cape Town Stadium.
I think the Stormers have a great chance of pipping Glasgow in Scotland. I think that, so what Dominic is saying, I think that they are going to use that artificial pitch with it being hard underfoot for all of the X Factor players to be able to run more. And I think that Willemse, losing him is obviously a bit of a hit, but instead of that, you'll bring in Warwick Gelant back at fullback, I assume, who is also X Factor. He just mustn't run away from the team and isolate himself. And then I'm sure, well, this is your question mark, right? I would hope that they would use Sasha's kicking boot to actually score some penalties, build some scoreboard pressure. Even though I don't like to admit it, I'm a big fan of go for touch and then try and get some tries. I would think they would then utilize that to full advantage.
So is there a chance of them starting Mani at 10 and starting Sasha at 12?
I don't think so.
No,
I think they'll keep one Dilisa Milane at 13. They'll put Duplessis in at 12. Then have Mani on the bench and Sasha starting at 10.
Horses for courses. I think because the problem with Mani is I think there's a bigger chance if he, the problem is what I worry about that is if Sasha has to go off for whatever reason, he has had a couple of injuries, or if you have to bring the changes and Mani comes on in knockout rugby
and he has to
kick, like it's a bit of a worry.
Yeah. It's a strange one because Mani to start is never a bad option because he is still an X Factor player,
and he had a great couple. He had a great game last week.
Yeah,
so
he did absolutely.
But you just don't want to get too far behind the 8 ball. With missed kicks.
Yeah, it's knockout rugby. Yeah, that's the thing.
Knockout rugby, and I mean, looking at the Springboks in the World Cup, you can't bank on someone like Andre Pollard coming on and literally didn't miss a kick.
Exactly.
The Stormers have a very deep blessings they've got at the center pairings there. Yeah? So I saw that Similane might be allowed to leave just because there's just too many players competing for those two positions with Duplessis, Hartzenberg, Ronell, and
Willemse
can play there. Yeah. It's a pity because I really like Similane and I think he's such
Send him back to the Lions. We loved him.
I think he's going to go to Europe to earn some money.
He's a bit of he's one of those guys that, you would have expected him to kick on. He just haven't quite found his feet yet. And I think he still has the ability, I think, to go on to have some sort of say in a Springbok jersey. Yeah. But I think he has to just find the right environment, and possibly Europe it is. Look at Esterhazen. Esterhazen went overseas. He was always a good player, but he went overseas and just turned into an absolute beast. And I don't see anyone beating him to that 12 jersey now in the Springboks. So, let's see.
Besides the Allende.
Yeah, but I think even there, I find it hard with the season he's had for the Sharks.
What about your boy Richard Creel, bro?
David Creel.
David Creel.
I just find it interesting that he can play, and he can play in a variety of positions, and he's a really good kicker. It's just an extra factor.
Next on the agenda anyway. Bulls versus Edinburgh in Loftus. At Loftus.
Bulls will win.
Yeah, Bulls.
Bulls are the informed team in the URC.
Yeah, and I think when we talk about, I've said this before, when we talk about coaching, I do feel like Jake White gets it. He gets needing to play certain types of rugby to win games, and I think he's less proud there. And I think he'll look to get results. And I think the Bulls have, and they always have been, such a factory for great forward packs, and it's no different now. And at the end of the day, I think, let's be honest, and a lot of people hate to admit this, but forward packs, when it comes to knockout rugby, forward packs really do a lot of the yards to win you games.
Yeah.
If you don't have a solid platform, then you've got nothing to build off of for the backs.
Yeah.
Plus, now they've got the passing of Conor Hendricks to sort of emotionally motivate them, which for South Africans has always been a big factor.
Yeah, it was nice to see the little tributes that went out on the weekend
From all teams,
from all teams, and the pictures on the jerseys. I know there was a lot of flowers laid in front of Loftus.
Jake was so upset in the press conference.
Yeah. She asked them to move it.
Yeah. And the last game of the quarterfinal stage is Sharks versus Munster, which is another great game at the Shark Tank in Durban.
That's the only one where I'm convinced that Stormers can do it. I'm convinced that the Bulls can do it. The Sharks, because they blow so hot and cold, and they've got such a disconnected team.
Jeez, it was a terrible game of rugby on the weekend.
They've got the star players to make it work, but
that game on the weekend
break
was
them apart.
so bad.
Yeah,
and there was nothing about them at all, which is why they didn't score any tries. But insane that they're that poor considering their lineup. I think they'll get it done. I just think Munster aren't a great side this year.
I think that's the only thing that's saving the Sharks is that Munster aren't really finding consistency. I know they lost to Cardiff. I've got that in front of me here. They lost to the Bulls, and they've lost to Glasgow and to Edinburgh in the last 7 games. So it's not like they're flying either.
No.
And that's where the travel for them will probably just tilted towards the Sharks, because it is a different environment going down to Durban.
I feel like they also keep on chopping and changing between who they use as fly half. 1 week you've got Sia Masuku, the next week you've got Jordan Hendrickson.
Yeah,
very different styles.
Yeah,
I don't know who's your informed fly half for the Sharks.
I mean, I always look at that position in combination, and I think I don't understand why Jaden Hendricks at 9 is such a stalwart in that side. I think he's beyond his breakthrough season when he's really broke into the Springbok team. He's never been the same, whether in a black jersey or a green jersey, and I think he's a big part of the problem. So I find it hard to sort of pick who I'd start at 10 based off the work he's doing. There's the little factor of Grant Williams.
Yeah, but I think he's injured.
Is he injured? Yeah. Okay. So I think that would be, maybe that answers my question as to why he started. And I think there it's been difficult for them to build a base. I like Jordan Hendrickson, but as you said and as you alluded to, such different styles. And going into knockout rugby, maybe Masuku is the guy to do it.
A little bit more consistency, a little bit more sort of controlled game.
I think to wrap up this prediction thing, let's assume, which I think we're all assuming, it's going to be a Leinster Bulls final. Are we not?
It's a pity that the Sharks played the Bulls.
Klaus, you think the Sharks are going to beat the Bulls in a semi-final?
No. I think the Bulls will get through. I'm not 100% convinced Leinster's going to get through.
You don't think Leinster at home would beat either the Stormers or Glasgow?
Correct.
Okay. Right. I
don't know. It's just a gut feeling. Let's put it that way.
There's something inside you that obviously that really vehemently stops you from giving Leinster their flowers, which I understand.
Why?
Because we're not big fans of them.
When have I ever said I'm not a fan of Leinster? All I'm saying is I've got this gut feeling that I don't think Leinster's going to get through, because I think they've psychologically are in a bit of a turmoil.
Okay.
Bit of a spin.
I mean, you're not going to see me complaining if they don't get to a final.
Yeah.
I see. Look, it's still Leinster's to lose. Let's put it that way. And I think, and they've shown their propensity to lose it.
Let's hypothetically talk about a Leinster Bulls final.
Yeah.
Because that would be big, and we will have more chance to talk about it when these knockout rounds progress. But if Leinster and Bulls played the final today
in Dublin,
I still would give it to the Bulls currently, because that's where I think they could take them.
I think the Bulls are the only South African side that can go all the way.
I think so too. And I think it's Leinster's to lose.
Yeah.
Being in such a favourite role obviously puts pressure on them.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
They must just play with Geordie Barrett and not make the same mistake they made in the Champions Cup.
Let's talk about the Welsh Union deciding to drop one of the franchises moving forward. They haven't said which one yet. There's obviously rumors that it could be the Dragons because of their underperformance. There's also the rumors that it could be Cardiff because they're already in administration, but the Welsh Rugby Union has just
Acquired them, or
acquired them,
purchased
or agreed to run them. What would make the most sense?
Gut feel, good decision.
Yeah.
First off, I think 4 Welsh teams it's a step too far in a massive rugby loving nation, but I think the realities are just different.
They should probably cut another one.
Yeah, I mean,
Go to like a Scotland and just run two franchises.
I think it's a very smart decision, and I think Cardiff being this year Scarlets have gotten in there too, but I think keeping Scarlets in Cardiff is, I think, a good move.
Yeah.
And then you'll have to see what you do with the Ospreys. But I think the clearest thing is the Dragons go. I also think in that sense, it's an easy sell. They're by miles the worst side in the URC. Why keep them? Let's pool players, let's pool resources, and try and I think it'll benefit the national team as well, the Welsh team.
Well, the commentators on TV the other day were saying that they have over 20 injuries to their starting pack. Jesus. So they just haven't been
the Dragons.
The Dragons. So they just haven't been able to.
You can pool physios as well.
Pool medical departments. Get everyone under one roof there.
3 people tugging on every limb trying to get these guys back on the pitch.
Okay, so I think all roads seem to be leading towards the Ospreys, Cardiff, and Scarlets remaining, but we'll keep an eye on that. And maybe last bit of news, which we discussed, which is an interesting one, is Ireland deciding to stop their sevens participation, their men's team. Klaus read an interesting fact about this.
Well, it makes no sense. They've brought in Ireland or Leinster's brought in a guy like Geordie Barrett, and they sort of estimate his salary to be somewhere in the ballpark of like £500,000 euros, and now they've brought in Rico Ioane, who would be earning something similarly.
Yeah,
and so there you've almost got 800, 900, a million euros that is being spent on these 2 players, which, I mean, they're good players, but they're not going to turn the whole team around. And in comparison, the entire Ireland Sevens program costs about €1 million to run.
A year, yeah.
That's players, physios, coaches, all of it.
Yeah.
And if you look at any seven system anywhere in the world, all of these players come through. Rico Ioane, he came through the sevens program in New Zealand. South Africa, look at Ches and Colby, Curtly Arnser. All of these boys, right,
come through the sevens program.
All of them.
It's simultaneously it's sad for Ireland to lose a sevens team, but it's also sad for I think sevens rugby, which it went through like a big hype seemingly like a few years ago where people were like, this is a lot of fun, and now I think they're going to have to, like every other rugby code, have to fight for their relevancy and keep sort of keeping their product fresh. And if unions decide to or if countries decide to stop their sevens program, that's a very negative outlook.
It'll also be interesting to see how, I mean, look, Spain, for example, a lot of these fringe countries are using the fact that sevens has become an Olympic sport to their advantage because they're able to secure government funding that is already set aside. So that already is an automatic boost to the sport. Yeah. And then definitely the ability is there to kind of funnel people from the sevens game into the 15s game. So that makes the timing of it even stranger, is that you would think that they would be able to kind of, with it being Olympics, although their problem is, and this is very relevant, I've actually just, a light bulb's just gone on, Team GB compete.
Yeah.
And Ireland, so it's Team GB and Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
Or is it GB and Ireland? Or is Ireland separate in the Olympics? They're separate.
But
I don't know. Maybe it's got something to do with the way all the structures are, the finances are, that they're just not able to. Yeah. I wonder how many they've got a lot of other good Olympic sports, French sports as well, though. Maybe that's why. They're really good at they're good at some of the climbing stuff and stuff. I don't know.
And rowing. But for me, it just doesn't make any sense if you're going to financially invest $1 million into rugby. Why do it in 2 players that don't even belong? They can't even play for your national team.
But an argument can be made for the other commercial value they bring to those sides, and I think that's the issue with sevens: is that you the $1 million that you invest, what does it equal, and what does it bring back to you? Is the argument, and I think with people like Barrett and Ioane coming in to the Irish rugby product, again, I'm not in the numbers, but I think that would be the argument. Is saying
that's
$1
just
million
Leinster.
is not $1 million.
But we're just talking about Leinster. We're talking about the national team. The international team is not benefiting from Jody Barrett and Rico Ioane.
Well, but Irish rugby is as a product is the argument.
Well, Irish rugby would profit even more if they would win.
Yeah, but
I mean, bringing superstars to a league is a proven
winner.
moneymaker across all sports. I understand what you mean, and I think we could continue with this argument for a while, but unfortunately, we have to keep an eye on the clock today, and that means we're going to have to end our rugby segment here. We thank you for listening, and we hope you tune into the other episodes this week, and we'll see you for some more rugby chat next week.
Ciao.